Okay, guys, we're gonna start. We are slightly a few minutes behind, but let's start. Super happy to see people here. It was a very demanding day, but I think it was very, very cool, full of awesome talks. So thank you for that. And I think we want to kill this day, finish this day with a small talk about. I would say like a future or like evolution of the art itself. However, Shady had like a lot of things that actually I was supposed to talk about right now, so he took it away from me. But I think we're going to be able to somehow tie it up. Because from my perspective as a person working on really big games, there's a lot of things that have to change. They have to change approaches. The world is in a different place right now than it was like 2 years ago. So many different variables right now that we are, in my opinion, right now like trying to solve. And it's going to be hard because I had like few notes, like few angles that I will try to cover with you guys. So I hope it's going to be like a nice discussion. However, I think we can, because I want to tie to what you said before on your talk, right? Because you talk about so many cool stuff, but at the end, the key takeaway for me was that I might get fired soon, right? And how to adjust to that. But okay, but before we're going to start, my name is Kacper. Probably some of you know me. I had the talk before here, but again, pleasure to meet you. This is Thor. He has to talk tomorrow. Right, at 11, highly recommend talk about the Ascent. We have Edita, also you have the talk tomorrow.
Yes, I have a talk tomorrow
awesome.
at 12 o'clock.
Glad to have you here, and you know Shady. If not, this is Shady. He has that
Shady,
talk,
creative director.
Right before this panel. So yeah, let's keep this off. And again, like so when am I gonna get fired and how and why?
Oh yeah. So we were talking last talk. Raise your hand if you were here for the last talk. Okay, so we don't repeat too much. We were just talking briefly about how the technology is making a cool pipeline from Blender to Unreal to the final VFX, and that bridge between all the time when someone makes a tree, the concept artist makes a tree in 3D, and that goes into the final shot of the movie. That's not too far away. That was my talk basically. So that the gist of it was that the concept artist is going to make a lot of decisions that are going to carry over all the way to the end. But I think the good news is, I met at the booth earlier today. I met a 3D artist, and I saw some of her amazing work. And she said she did it in like 5 hours. This incredible 3D scene. So I just think the word concept artist, environment artist just goes away, and that everyone just brings. If you're a 3D artist, you're kind of then a concept artist. You know what I mean? Like the jobs meld, and the title can be whatever it is.
I mean that pretty much ties back to like in the beginning, like game designers, but it was literally only one programmer. Like I mean, all the jobs that we have in games today have been created along the way, and some have also died along the way. But most people that create games, I mean, they do it to create games. Like no one is like, I really love bushes. That's why I got into games. I'm gonna make the best bushes in AAA.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's someone like that somewhere, but you're right.
And it's exciting to like think, okay, so let's say how many people CD Projekt Red has? 1,000?
Around 1,000 together, I'd say. But devs, like 500 or something like that.
500 to 1,000. So if there was a time where a kid in his garage could just sit, because I have a friend, Andrew Maximov, you know him, and he created this incredible thing called Promethean AI, where he can just wear VR, walk around to space, and just type or say sentences. I want a room in the 70s. And it'll use AI to create a room in the 70s. I want that desk to be a little older, a little newer. So it already kind of exists. I can imagine a time where a kid could be like, I want a tropical rainforest in Brazil, and it looks like Avatar. And then all he's left figuring out is maybe what's the game. And then all the game design, all the environment jobs, even the concept art kind of goes away. And that's okay, because then I think, okay, well, realism, we already know what it is. So maybe we don't need to like keep remaking realistic shit. Maybe then it becomes like, well, what next can we do that's not realistic, because realistic is super easy. And then we'll just think of other levels and other crazy stuff to do. I feel like humans we used to hunt with a bow and arrow, and now we have like, Baguette Boulevard.
Shops, you go to buy a shop,
yeah, you
right?
go into a shop, and I'm sure a guy who's really good at bow and arrow hunting would be like, this is bullshit. You guys can't do anything for yourselves.
Yeah, so we are in a place where you guys feel like the software hopefully is going to help us, not take away our jobs.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, because you also said something that is very resembles to me, is that you said there's a chance we don't need to know how to paint well, right? So for me, how I took it away from it is that maybe skill is not that important anymore. And that's the line where I feel like, okay, I think this is a border when you cannot cross, because at the end you have to understand what's pretty and what's not, like in super broad idea, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, but your aesthetic idea can still, evolve, and you still need a really good aesthetic eye. But it's just like with the bow and arrow example. Maybe the bow and arrow hunting goes away, so then the actual skill with the bow goes away, but you have to develop some other skill that is useful for getting food, like being good at making games, like that gets you money, that lets you have food. You just do it a different way. So I feel like we could just evolve into something that we just evolve with the job.
I mean, I agree with that from my taste, but you guys also very happy to hear what you say. But I have the same idea that we have to merge like few jobs in one person, because that's going to be just faster even, right? You don't have to talk to 5 guys or like 5 different devs to have something to be done. You can do it by your own, one evening, and it's done. It's just going to be so faster. So with that, I absolutely agree. However, because Tor, you had like a very small team, right? You had like 11 devs, right?
Yeah, like 12 people.
And you did like a very crazy, densely huge game with that, right?
Yeah.
So can you tell us about how this went?
I mean, basically we were like 4 artists in total, and we built an open world cyberpunk game. And how hard can it be? No, but basically I think what will happen, and like what we try to do is like to get rid of as much as the middle layer, because like making games today is like, it's not just about creativity. There's a whole lot of bullshit where you have to like, I have a great idea. Like, no, we can't do that because those shaders don't work like that, and you can't do that. The draw distance is too far, and there's just so much of that stuff. And like, and I think what will happen is that like that middle layer, which is the people that implement things, will go away. I mean, it's still heavily tech driven, but the middle layer, which is like, unfortunately, like the poor 3D artists and the people who are set dressing levels, like that stuff will probably be the first thing that goes away, because you still need the ideas and you need the creativity and the vision, and you still need a shitload of tech behind the scenes to make everything work. But like everything in the middle is kind of like in the danger zone, and that's kind of also like where almost no one goes into games to be a facilitator of other people's ideas. Like that's not what people go go into games to do. Like, I wish someone told me which gun to build next, and that I had too many polygons in it. No, you want to make a badass sci-fi gun, like that doesn't like that part is the part that is not strictly needed. But you still need the creativity and you still need the tech.
Well, the team is smaller than it's supposed to have. Like a few years back, probably we wouldn't be able to pull this off with just as small team as it was, right? Like, so the tech kind of also help us to have smaller games, because that's actually my second question, like second part of this conversation, let's say, because we are still building like a huge games. Like, we want to go super big. Like, even you guys like went with really big world. But the question is like, how far is too far, and how expensive is too expensive, right? Because at the end, the game should at least get profit, right? And the bigger the game is, the bigger the challenge is. So as to how you feel like, how we going to end up, like, do we actually going to still be doing like a huge games, or maybe we're kind of going to have to take like a step back, making something smaller from now on? Hard question to that.
Yeah, very hard question. I think we will stick to the bigger game still. At least in Techland we measure high, so AAAs for good. For example, our audio team at Techland have seven people, so it's a very small one. But the solid tech background allows us to deal with this huge project by 7 people. In fact, I'm sound level designer, so I take care of open world in our game, and it's only me and my friend. And the Villedor city, so the city from Dying Light 2, has 12 square kilometers. So 2 people and everything is there what should be there. But still, without a solid tech background, we wouldn't be able to deal with that way.
I think it might shrink, because I think like with all this technology making things faster, and even when I was watching your talk, you're moving assets around, right, in a space, and then painting with a brush that these awesome programmers made for you. I was like, I wish we had that. Then it would just be concept art. We would just do that and then render it and be like, this is the concept. And then ideally, because you were kind of doing exactly what we do, it just, I use add-ons in Blender and you use awesome tools that your team made. I think it's going to maybe get smaller because, like I said, if we have one crate, couldn't we all share it? Couldn't we all like use, if we're doing realistic games, let's just say that, you still need the art direction part. That was cool. You can't replace that. There's still a bunch of things you can't replace. But, I mean, if you have a library of assets, you could easily mock up a bunch of different things and it would look really good. And it could be done by less people.
I think they will get both bigger and smaller, actually. I think the AAA is just going to keep growing because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Cyberpunk and Dying Light 2, made some money. So seems like a decent investment. So people like big. So we'll definitely make, bigger and bigger games. But I also think that smaller studios and smaller teams will also create like more and more like proper games, not just like
Define proper, please.
it's like it's like because now a small team can make something that is like not just like a side scroller, right? Like you can make an open world third person game with like a team of like less than 20 people. It's not going to be the best looking ever, but you can do it. And I think the more we have these tools evolve, like the tools that you're using, for example, in Quixel and everything, it's just gonna keep raising the bar for what you can get away with a small team.
Yeah, because Unreal being what it is, and if they're using it in film and they're using it in games, and it's just all about getting this one tool to rule them all, and if we can get that going and not everybody's all spread out on their different things. I don't know if Blender's going to be the winner, but because it was free, the kids started using it when they were 10. We met a Slovak kid who's 14? Yeah, he's 14. He's been using Blender for 3 years. He was better than, I would say, 70% of concept artists I've ever seen. He's just incredible because he doesn't have a job or anything. Freeloading off his
That's
parents.
illegal.
Yeah, just takes his parents' money and food and just gets good. But yeah, I think because it was free, I have artists that message me that are like in India and various countries, and yeah, you still need the 3090 RTX, unfortunately. You need the beastly computer. That's the barrier. But the software being free made it kind of ubiquitous. But we'll see. And Unreal is taking over. No one's arguing that. So I think it's soon where maybe this ecosystem will be shared, and then we won't all have to redo everything from zero. We can all share the same tools, and then all of that stuff can go away, and we can focus on making games or movies.
So basically just try to be just creative and just keep that part in our heads, not like other things. Well, hopefully, as long as I'm going to be doing better games, better movies, why not? Let's try that.
Yeah, if a young kid could make another like quick mini city version of Cyberpunk with the same tools quickly and make his own little story, and other people could play it, because they already have that for like kids. I don't know if there's a mom showed me this thing called Roblox. Do you know Roblox?
Yeah.
Okay. Roblox is this tiny little ecosystem where everyone can easily make their own games. And it's a small version of what I think could be later something that makes AAA looking games.
Yeah, and I actually, when you said like yes, I was like, okay, I heard about it, never tried it though, but yeah, I heard
it's for little kids,
very
but
cool.
it's cool.
But I heard like there's a lot of people doing like a lot of cool stuff in it, and actually you can get paid there, if I'm correct. I think you can sell something there. I'm not sure.
Do you know about it?
Yeah.
And people like, who knows? Let's see.
Yeah, download the app. It's pretty fun to mess around with.
Well, definitely. I'm sorry, just taking into my notes. But so, as I said before, like also all those things, like this creativity, I really hope we're going to be able to push it forward. Maybe actually we're going to be able to forget about the tech, or just the tech going to be there to support us, but we're going to be able to focus only on the fun part, right? The artistic part. But also to do that, we're talking about slightly about the teams, the bigger games, bigger teams, smaller teams, more guys, who knows? But also there's this aspect where I really would like to talk about a little bit more, because right now in this place where the COVID hit, we're like right now over 2 years after the COVID hit, right? And we are shifting into working from wherever we want to work from, right? I have my personal opinion, maybe I'm going to share it later, but I'm just guys curious what do you think about whether or not whenever we're going to go with either giving option to people or not, it's going to be supporting to be creative, or actually maybe it's going to be harder. How I feel like how this is going to go?
You mean pandemic?
Well, I'm talking about like going to home office, staying at the studio, like doing work from every part of the world. If you're able to, like, if there's something that actually we can be worried about, or actually there's going to be like boosting our creativity and like doing like cool stuff.
Regarding creativity, I think it's a little bit problem because, for example, in audio, it's nice to have a second pair of ears, and I don't have two pairs of ears, so I often show my sounds to somebody else. And if you are in an office, it's easy to get another sound designer or even animator, whoever. Just sit, listen. Do you like it or do you don't like it? And if I'm working at home, usually at the headphones, so it's an additional disadvantage of creating sounds because you should have proper sound speakers to hear your sounds. And after working 2 or 3 hours with some sounds, you just you don't hear any more sound because your ears are tired, and you think that it's the great sound you have ever made, and the next day you open the project and oh my God, what happened? What happened here?
Couldn't you send it to someone over email though?
I can, but it's nice to have somebody like you're sitting right here and you talk to me. We have the same speakers. It's also important to have the same speakers, and also the mood. I see you and you smile, and I know if you really like that sound or not. And
Just lying about that.
Yeah.
Great
You can
sounds.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
No, I think it's. I mean, if you're going to do that, I mean, I think the important part is the communication, and I mean, that doesn't happen by itself, right? Like, I mean, especially if you want to have that, creative flow where you talk to people and you have, you collaborate on things. If you're going to do that via distance, I mean, you have to set yourself up for that, basically. I mean, you can't just, everyone can't just go home and then it's going to be the same. I mean, you need to work a lot for that.
Also, it's very easy to, close yourself in your safe capsule and not show your work to anybody because I did amazing work and nobody's around. So, put it in a game and leave it. And after a week or some playtests, you have this feedback, which you probably you would have in 10 minutes.
Yeah, our company was remote way before it was cool.
Or necessary.
Yeah, or necessary. It was always remote. And it was always because when I started the studio, I wanted, I'm from Los Angeles. Maria's from Slovakia. We're here now, living in Prague, and there was no consequence to it. And in my mind, I always wanted to be able to, and this is just my own personal thing, I love the idea, like, this backpack has everything in it. Like, the whole company is in that backpack. So I like that, being able to just, now we live in Prague, and it's awesome, and I don't have to worry about, like, anything. So the freedom was, personally, I liked it for me. The way we dealt with it at the studio was that there was a little bit of a cost. I don't understand it fully, but if you were to talk to the artist, I would say, many of them would say, I wish I was in a studio with these guys. I think a lot of them would say that. I think they're younger, they want the camaraderie and all that. For me, I don't need that. I worked at Naughty Dog for a long time, and I didn't like being in an office as much as I like being alone because I hang out with my friends in the evening, and during my work time, I actually don't want anyone to talk to me, and if there's an email that needs to be done or something, we can do it remotely. But that's just my own personal taste. For the team, though, we have a couple solutions that actually made it possible to be remote. One, we use a screen recording software called OBS. It's free, it's easy, you don't have to render the file, you hit start, you talk, the mic records it, you draw on the screen, you hit stop, you throw the video in the Dropbox, and you don't have to hop on a call. Like 90% of wasted life is on calls where you're hopping on a call to have a two-way conversation. And it is cool to connect with people, but it's less efficient than a one-way conversation that only takes 2 minutes. Because if you talk to someone on the phone, or if you talk to an artist, it's going to start with, how's your day going? How's it going? Cool? Awesome. Yeah, that was cool. All right, cool. And then there's a lot of that. And really, I just need to say, make it bluer, or change this one thing. And they're still getting to hear directly and see exactly what I'm doing. Now, there does miss a little bit of thing, but it allowed us to it allowed me by myself to be able to manage 30 artists because it's all videos going into folders. And then if they have a question, they can always WhatsApp me or call me. That was one thing. But we were still missing community. And what we did for that wasn't my idea, because I didn't care. They cared. And someone was like, let's start a Discord. I'm like, why? I already give you the videos. What do you need that for? And they were like, we want a Discord. I was like, okay, well, I don't care as long as I don't have to do anything. And the Discord became this incredible place where now everybody has a way to communicate with everybody else without me being that sort of Scrooge in the middle who doesn't care about humans connecting as much as they do. And they now, and also the incredible secondary effect is that they all learn from each other. I'm not a bottleneck sitting here being like, all the information only comes through me. This thing goes on its own now. And guys are like, I found this new add-on, check it out, boom, oh, awesome, boom, meme, funny meme, then another cool thing. And it's just, it's constant. So the Discord and the screen record videos gave us some community and a really good way to give feedback without us ever like being in the same place.
You about to say something?
No?
I thought I wanted to say something. Because I think what's really cool, because, correct me if I'm wrong though, but very often the concept artists, or from my perspective at least, very often they have to do something, and they not necessarily need to have a very big support of the different teams or like different dependencies, right? I think here where the problems might start to appear, where like you said, Edita, for example, right? You have to have a feedback from different teams. You have to have a very close information loop from other teams. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just curious what you guys think, because for me, I feel like it is, for now at least, very challenging to get to a point where we're going to have such a fluent communication to be not in the same room per se, but in different part of the world. I'm not saying it's impossible. I think we're still not there yet, and we're trying to figure out how to get there.
Yeah, concept art, I look at it as a one-person job. They get the brief, and they're doing it all on their own, but it's not collaborative in the sense that concept artist doesn't have to talk to a programmer and a sound person to figure out how they're going to do their job. When the job is interdisciplinary, then I don't know if it works.
Yeah, and especially now that, like, for example, so our game that we made, The Ascent, right? It still has all the features of a large-scale game, but it's made with a very small team, which means that we didn't have like, it's not like, oh, information goes to the animation team and now they need to talk. Like, no, there's one guy. So like every person is a team, which means that every person needs to communicate as much as an entire team, because the scale is still as big as a larger game. So we still need the same amount of communication that is normally on a whole pile of people and leads and producers, and now it's boiled down to like a single person. So we need to communicate way more instead, and then we have all that, like people are wearing different hats and they have to do all the disciplinary communication, and that gets very time consuming and very hard very quickly. Like the whole thing, like let's jump on a call with like the other 5 people, which is like literally like half the company. Mm-hmm. So it gets very quickly like, okay, I need to ask some questions. I'm going to need the entire animation department, half the code department, half the art department, and all the design department, because we're going to talk about the thing. So it becomes very
And
hard
you
very
do need
quickly.
them all in the call.
Yeah, exactly. Because like we only need 10% of the animator's brain, but that means the entire animation team, because he's it.
Right. So in COVID, what did you guys do?
Well, we did that. I mean, I don't think it's optimal. I mean, the good thing is like, well, people don't disturb you as much, so people could still work and could still make it work. But you lose some of that. I just need someone to look at this for a second.
Yeah. Or I struggle because I'm like trying to learn. I get stuck on some technical thing, and thankfully I have employees that have to answer me or they're fired. But I have like people that can help me right away. But if I wasn't in a studio, the Discord did that a little bit. People say, people like share. You can write a comment on there and someone might get back to you quick. But sometimes you're stuck on this one little thing and you really need to talk to someone right now in order to do any more work. And that's the time where I really wish I had someone like right there that I could shake.
Yeah, I think the longer you work in a company, the easier it is, because you don't have to learn a lot of things. And if you are a new employee and something broke and you don't know the button to push, it's a nightmare. You are calling your colleagues from team. Most probably they don't know, and finding another person, and at the end it turns out that you have turned some animation debug, and only animator know how to turn it off.
And that's a huge difference as well, right? Like, I mean, because if everyone already knows what they're doing. Okay, now we're going to go away, we're going to do that thing. But it's also completely different, like, oh, we're going to start a new game from scratch. that's completely different because then like, oh, all the new pipelines, all the new information, that also makes it harder. It's a lot easier to go away and finish something than it is to start something.
Yeah, but we were talking about this yesterday too. There's also a cost of concentration lost in a studio. I remember when I was like, especially the open office floor plan, which I think they've done some studies since, because remember, we used to be in offices in the 1950s where you could like smoke cigarettes and have whiskey, and it's all glass. And then it was just all open office, which everyone thought was awesome. But I always felt very naked in an open office, like very vulnerable. Like I never, because it's just, and also your desk is facing a wall, so people can come up behind you. So that sucks too, from like a feng shui perspective. Like I don't want like Tiger to eat me from behind. I want to be this way, and it just wasn't set up like
front,
that.
Right? Yeah.
What's that?
Eating up front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to like this. And then also there was like, by the time you finish messing around and get to work, it's like 2 o'clock, and then like 5, 6 o'clock, someone comes by for a chat, and basically your day is shot because you finally got your groove of concentration going at 5:30. You're in the zone. Someone comes by to chat at 6, and what are you going to do? Leave me alone? I'm working? No, you got to chat, and now you're chatting, and 7 o'clock you haven't done shit that whole day. So it was tough for me.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm working for home still, but I have got some days that I needed to go to the office, and they look exactly as you said. 1 coffee, 2 coffee. You chat with this guy, those guy. I sit at the desk, and then another guy came in, and oh, I haven't seen you 2 years. Yeah, well, what's going on?
Yeah.
And 8 hours. Oh my God, I need to go to home.
Yeah.
And I did nothing.
I think it's cool because again it gives different perspective to the same problem, because I hear very often the problem of, okay, my God, I spent like 6 hours on those damn meetings because I had to talk about some feature that I had to talk to like the whole company or whatever. I think it's the same problem, just different circumstances, like different tools that we have right now. But it just shows that we're still having exactly the same problems to solve. Like, for example, find time to work versus find for coffee, or chat about, I haven't seen you for 2 years, which is weird that we have those problems, right? Because we should be able to say like, no, I need to work right now. Please
We were brainstorming this idea, which is, we had it at Naughty Dog when I was there, which was the big headphones means don't talk to me, which is kind of good. And people would get big headphones because people had to see to not talk to you. And I think if I had a studio, I would actually make that a rule. Be like, if someone has their headphones on, you're not allowed to talk to them. You can message them on an instant messenger. They might see it and decide to respond or not. But that concentration is valuable. And when you lose it, you can't get it back. You might not get it back that day, for me at least.
No, I think it's very valuable. I think it's very often people have like, they're in the zone and it's broken, and you're like, that's it. I can go home now, and maybe I'm going to be able to do something tomorrow. But again, I don't think, from my perspective, it's not the issue of where you're at. Like, for example, me, I cannot focus in my apartment. I cannot. I can only work at the office because in my home, like the dishwasher is gonna make me do something else. Like there's so many things that just cannot make me focus. So I think it's just a matter of preferences. But I think that still the same issue stands: how to get your work done, not being interrupted. And I don't think this is a matter of where you're at. It's just a matter of how you're gonna approach that issue.
Yeah, I like I can't work from home either. I want a lot of people around who aren't talking to me. That's my favorite. Like the coffee shop or the co-working space where you're just sitting there. There's kind of stuff going on, so it doesn't feel like you're alone, but you're kind of alone doing your own thing.
So guys, so we talked some of those angles, but so if there's a wish, you feel like what would be the best thing that happened to us in the industry, both games, movies, like whatever, art industry, visual art industry, like whatever, what would that promise? Like what would you like to have within 5 to 10 years that will make your life so much better? That's a simple question.
No.
Maybe there's nothing like that. Maybe like, okay, it's perfect as it is. Let's don't make it. Let's don't.
I mean, I know you want to kill everyone's jobs.
No, if you want to be a god, so
You want to be art god and everyone else lose their jobs.
Raise it. I like, for me, my goal is, because I spent my career helping other people make their awesome visions for their projects. And the next chapter for me is just, I want to make my own projects, which I was talking about writing. I'm writing and pitching animated movies. So that came about, and that maybe has to do with like just kind of how you progress in your life. I think you get to the top of any mountain, and then you get there and you're like, I'm still not happy. And then you find something else to do, you know? So I think it's just a matter of like, whatever you get to, you're never going to be like, oh my God. And I always think about it because I have this new goal that's different from my last goal. I think about, okay, what if I made my movie? Okay, I directed it, and then I won an Oscar, and then I hang out with like Tom Cruise, and we have an Oscar party, and we do shots and get wasted, and it's a great time. The next day, I'm going to wake up, and I'm going to just be on a blank computer screen and be like, okay, well, this next one better be good too. You know what I mean? Like, there's never going to be a moment of rest. So it's always going to be the next other thing. And if I think about it in that way, it helps me to kind of enjoy what I'm doing right now as much as I can, or be like, oh, I'm doing the thing that I loved. It's not always about that other thing. So for me, I can't imagine what I would do in 10 years because I like what I'm doing now. It's just that I want to be more present in the things that I'm enjoying in the moment instead of always thinking about what I don't have or what could be in the future.
I think I'm a bit on the opposite end of the spectrum of what you do because like I focus a lot on the tech and the tools and the pipelines and stuff like that. So every time there's like new technology, it's like, you know, it's awesome because you can do a lot of new things. But the problem is also like I spend all my time trying to figure out how to make the best things out of the existing tools. So every time someone invent a new tool, that it's basically like, shit. I learned all these new, like, I'm like, it's amazing, like I can push Unreal 3 like to its limits. We can do all these tricks. And they're like, here's Unreal 4, it can do way more cooler things. And I was like, okay, fine. Now you just dump all the old tricks and now you have to go and learn new ones. And it's the same thing with Unreal 5 because I'm like, okay, now I don't have to do all the cool tricks that I used to do. Now anyone can do it. So now I have to go and find my new tricks. And there's not really any, I mean, you can't win because people are going to keep removing all the tricks that you come up with. But it's, I mean, the end point is like the creative output, right? And which is, I mean, I think that's already happening. But for example, like it would have been impossible for me like to start a game studio and like make a game with like 12 people like 10 years ago. Like that would have been way harder than it is now. And so we're already on the road where like it's getting easier and easier to just realize like your creative ambitions, which is, that's what I want to do. So it's good that it's happening. It's just that now I spent all this time learning all these, ways to, trick computers into doing what I want them to do.
Yeah, I think what we were talking about earlier, is it going to get bigger? I think it was getting bigger for a long time, and it's gotten the biggest it's going to get, and now it's going to get smaller, and it's going to get smaller and smaller, where less people can do more and more cool things, and it's because finally we reached a point where the tools are becoming somewhat universal.
I mean...
Maybe.
I don't think so, because it's the same thing with movies. Movies are not new. They've been around for like a long, long time, and they keep getting bigger. Like they just they're like, if someone made like a $300 million movie in like the 60s, people have been like, but now it's like...
I think that's true. But it just makes it so that you don't need to spend that money. But I think like when you have a big machine like Disney, I remember I went to Disney in Burbank in Los Angeles. They had like an open house. You could go to Disney Studios. And I was looking at their pens. They had pens that said Walt Disney Company. And I'm like, shit, they branded their pens? No wonder these movies cost $200 million.
But
like
we branded our pens. It's like the first thing we did, the pens and the coffee cups.
Okay, maybe not the pens. They also have like a ridiculous workspace and free food, and they created their own app for their thing. And I'm looking at the hair in Encanto, and I'm like, oh, Jesus. Like the curls, the way they're bouncing. And like, I think there's, and some of the Pixar directors have said this. They spend 2 years storyboarding because they have 2 years. It's the same with a game. Like, you know this. If you have hundreds of millions of dollars, nobody comes up with...
I wish I knew that.
Yeah. No one comes up with one idea and is like, hey, I have an idea the first week after the last game shipped, and like, yeah, let's do that. Close the book, let's finish. No, you dick around for like a year and a half because you have the time and the money, and because you think that you need to spend that time because you have that money. So I think there's that endemic problem with big companies. They just have the money so they can spend the money, and also they have the money. So James Cameron, he spent 13 years making billions of dollars of movies because he had billions and he had the influence, and he's like, I'm gonna. How about that? And then he kept thinking of new ways to spend money.
I solved that by not having the money. It was very easy.
It was, yeah. See, yeah, exactly. I think that streamlines things. When I'm trying to work on an animated short right now, and I'm researching money and trying to figure out how much to spend, I'm like, oh my God, like looking at mocap solutions, there's so many ways to not spend a gross amount of money if you really are focused on that.
Is there any wishes from your side?
Regarding to what you say, I would call this one big iteration. And for example, in Techland, we very like iterations. We always want to make something bigger, and since there are money, why not? And this is why also sometimes this process it takes a long time, because you do something, you iterate, you change, and you make something better and better again. And still, if you have money.
Yeah, there's an idea. This happens in concept art a lot, and we don't deal with it that much because we're an outsourcing studio, so nobody has the money to mess around. They're hiring us for 1 image or 2 images. We're not like in-house, and we're paid by the hour we spend. But there's this idea that we're going to do this exploration. We're going to explore. We just got to do some exploration. I can't tell you how many times someone sends us an image of Valorant and says, we want to make a game that looks like Valorant, but different. And you're like, I understand, Valorant looks great. It's the best of that style. Like, they got it. That style rocks. So can we just do Valorant? And they're like, no, we're doing a different thing, but like Valorant. And they're a small studio maybe, and they don't have very much money. And if I was in charge, I would just say, we're doing different characters than Valorant, so let's just do our characters in the Valorant style. No one's going to see them and be like, how dare you, sirs? No one looks at Last of Us and be like, you copied Assassin's Creed's grass. Like, nobody cares. Like, if you don't have a huge amount of money, I'd say pick from the things that exist. This idea of exploration is only necessary if it really does need exploration. But if it's a known quantity, don't explore. Just do the thing. It's going to be 9/10 good, and spend your money elsewhere. In concept art, we see it a lot of that kind of idea that you need to explore in order to find a good solution.
But also in AAA, like I was working on one game, and then I left, and then I shipped 11 more games, and then that game shipped. And it was not at all the same game anymore. But it's like that was also this, like they were just, it needs to be enormous. Like instead of just like they had like an idea for a game, and instead of just doing that, they're like, keep having new ideas. So because the game needs to be huge, and then they kept on doing that, and the game was huge, but many years later, because they had the money to spend.
Yeah, especially if you had a couple hits, and you got a ton of money in the bank, then you get to do kind of anything you want. But it's cool, it pays off. Whenever I play huge, awesome games, I'm like, walk around Cyberpunk, you're like, I'm just tired for the people. I'm tired for you. I'm like, oh God, how much work. These guys, how many hours did they not see their friends and families? Like, blood was spilled for Last of Us 2. I wasn't there. I started at the beginning of Last of Us 1, but like, oh my God, like that was a brutal crunch on that one for a long time. And when I play the game, I'm running by a room that I know like some artist like got a divorce over, and I'm like, that was worth it. Amazing room, looks incredible.
Yeah, that's why I was question about the future, right? Because right now we still, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the game is going to be still huge and going to be games smaller. But for example, we all know how small percentage of people actually are able to finish those huge games, right? I'm just thinking about what you said, like the guy got a divorce because he had an awesome room, but no one ever saw that room, right?
You're right.
And like, why? For example, I used to love huge games because I had time for that. Now I love Call of Duty because 6 hours, one evening, I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's something that's really, I feel like, of course, I'm getting like older. I'm different, I'm a different target, but still, I feel like some of the games are really huge right now, and no one's actually able to finish those games.
But how about that Elden Ring? The kids are loving that Elden Ring. I know adults, like grown people that are like who are busy with lives and jobs that are 100 hours into that bad boy. They can't get enough.
Yeah, I need to get to info how to get that free much time. That's
Yeah,
I don't know. Like I want to learn it.
Is anyone 100 hours into Elden Ring? Nice.
Okay,
Nice.
explain
Those
us
guys
how.
have time. Greatest open world game ever, or pretty much, right?
Yeah, pretty much. All right, guys, because we are almost at the end, but maybe there are some questions from you about the future of art production in both games, movies, or whatever we're going to be doing like next. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm Paul from Prime Jelly. So I'm also into artificial intelligence in many ways, and I'm into betas of, I don't know if you guys know, OpenAI's DALL-E 2, saying. You can just use natural language to, just describe something, and then a few seconds later you have your concept art. So have you guys looked into that? Are you guys seriously scared and shocked?
I was scared, and I kind of just saw that online, and I'm like, nah, I'll look at that later.
Yeah, because the stuff you're talking about, like how dire it is, I think it's even way more dire than you guys maybe realize.
Well, just
Extremely shocked.
well, don't tell the clients for a while. We could probably ride that train for at least a year before any client Googles AI art making.
No, but I think it's the same thing as, procedural tools. Everyone loves like, oh, what if you can generate the entire city? And everyone thought like, it sounds amazing, and you make amazing gifts out of it. Like, look, we just put these boxes out, and now it's a city, and people are like, looks amazing, and they're like, okay, try making a game out of it. Because like it's very easy to make something that I'm like, oh, we're just gonna generate an infinite city like forever. It's like, yeah, but it's not very fun. And I think it's the same thing with like, I think that kind of stuff it's gonna become a tool, and it's gonna phase out some things, but I don't think it will replace the creative aspect. It will just be another tool in the toolbox, and it will definitely kill a few jobs.
But I have a question about the AI thing because I don't understand how good it is. If you had, can it respond to a story, like, or is it decorative? Like, for example, if you had an armor for some character for Diablo, and you told AI, I want to see 40 variations of armor, and each one was really cool and interesting, great, that's decorative. But could the AI, for example, say, could take into account what the storytelling is, like I was talking about in my talk, and decide based on the story what this person should be wearing, let's say?
Yeah, so they're doing that as well. So they have also GPT-3 and 4 coming out, and it's a lot about natural language processing, and they're doing sort of cross-domain stuff as well really well.
What is cross-domain stuff?
Like from a story or words, transferring something into an image that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, we can talk in a while. I can show you. I've got it on my mobile. It's just scary. You can even like prompt it with 10 images from our concept art, and then describe what you want, and it will iterate in that style that you just gave it. And you can specify. It's just.
That's awesome. It's just too bad Bitcoin's down. Otherwise, I wouldn't give a shit.
No, but I think it will be. I mean, it is another tool, because it's like, I mean, now you're hand placing things in Blender, and you're doing all these things, and this is just going to be another tool. Like well, you won't need to do a lot of the manual steps, but you do the manual steps because you have to, because you're trying to tell a story. Like, the story is still the same, and you still want to direct that, because the AI will just be like, it will not be like, well, screw your idea, here's my better idea. Like, you're still there telling it what to do. The problem is the people that you would tell to do that.
I wonder if we just did like a moon base, or like a terraforming on a new planet concept. So if I typed in ship, land, terraformed on a new planet concept, and that concept was cooler than the concepts that we got, then yeah, it's game over. So let's try it.
It's like that. We can do that in a minute.
Let's do it. I actually want to see. And then I'll show you the concepts, and
I want to see as well. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Definitely. Maybe one more question. There's one. Or if not, let's check out this AI and. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question. Nico from the project. You were talking a lot about this idea that with Unreal and with all the scans you can use and share like all the tools and stuff like that. Aren't you all guys afraid a little bit that because everyone is going to use Unreal apparently, and everyone will share the same assets from the same store, like we transfer all the power over all the industries into like one hand. One company to rule them all. Because it's not a software, it's a company.
Yeah, and they're buying and taking over a lot of other companies.
Yeah. How do you feel about that? Like the decentralization, not necessarily only with Epic in mind, but in general, Adobe is buying everything, right? Epic is conquering all the industries, and how do you feel about this thing?
I mean, I think it's great from a like, oh, I just want to create some stuff, like great from that perspective. It's not super great from like a game development perspective, because it is like, I mean, Unreal is great, but it's also it's a very it doesn't fit specific needs, and the fewer game companies that have that skill set to make the stuff that you actually need to do whatever game idea you have, because you can't do anything.
Yeah, it's catered to what it's catered for.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's a lot of things you can't do in Unreal, and if you want to do that thing, then you're a bit screwed, unless you have a tech team.
Yeah, I would be worried about a big company doing that if like they were going to screw people later. Like Uber was a problem because remember it used to be cheap, and then it suddenly wasn't because they were Uber's cost went up like 30% because for a while they weren't making money, and they were cool with it because they wanted to get a foothold in the world, and then they did. And now suddenly, sometimes an Uber ride from the airport is like 3 times what it used to be because now we're screwed. So if something like that happened, yeah, I would be really worried about it. And I don't like, Elon Musk buying Twitter. I think there's some things that should be democratized. I don't think, I don't think big companies should be in control and have the potential to exploit a lot of people if they feel like it later. So yeah, it could be a concern. But at least it's not having to do with like freedom of speech or politics or other things that are really serious. It's just about game development, so maybe I'm less worried about it because but I don't know, maybe if we all live in the metaverse and they decide everyone has to pay, who's addicted to it has to pay $20 a month or they turn it off and then you're like, I can't have it turned off, like it could be the apocalypse. Listen, we're all fucked pretty soon. Like we only got like 100 years, so don't worry about it.
That's very optimistic. Let's check out the AI. Going to see even more depressed about that.
Yeah, this could all be for nothing because like we're not going to survive this global. We're not going to work it out.
Well, for us, definitely, we're not going to be.
Yeah,
able to
we're going to be
like,
dead, and our kids will live
probably
in some
tonight. Yeah,
it won't be Mad Max, but it'll be like kind of like that. So we won't have time for games.
So that's the future of art production.
Yeah, I think it's a given. This is a fun note to end on. It's a given that our species always does good, because it always has for us. But it's not a given in the cosmic scale. I think it's very likely we don't survive these challenges. One person can fucking end the world with a button. Now, one human can push a button and start a nuclear war, and that'll be the end of humans. Like that could happen next week if shit escalates.
That's a great segue. I hope it's going to be more optimistic though, but guys, I really hope we're not...
games, art
fun.
Art is fun.
Oh my God. Yeah, guys, thank you so much for showing up. I hope this was a little bit informative, less depressing, more optimistic though. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Awesome.
Thank you.